Chapter 2. Totally Distracted. Trig stumbled back to Pentua's house, with Tenna leaning on his shoulder. His guardian was surprised to see him back so early in the day, doubly so when she realized he was not alone. "Oh my," Pentua gasped. "I thought boys your age hung out with their girlfriends after school, not before." "No, not my girlfriend," Trig panted. "She needs help. She's sick, and I think she's in trouble." Trig and Pentua guided Tenna to the guest room. The young girl told them she felt very unwell, as though the whole world was crushing her. Pentua guided Tenna to the bed and had her lay on her back. She had a grave expression on her face. "Trig, you say you found her in the basement of the Overlook Temple?" she asked. "Yes, I did," Trig replied. "Where am I?" Tenna groaned. "This place doesn't look like Lightwater." "Lightwater?" Trig repeated. "No, that's hundreds of light years away from here. You're in our small holding, just north of Eddleton." Tenna made a sound as though she was about to panic. Her eyes went wide and darted from Trig to Pentua. "Eddleton!" Tenna gasped. "What? How?" "I think I know what happened," Pentua replied. "Tenna, sweetie, listen to me. You are suffering from environmental sickness. It will pass in a few hours, and you'll be fine. Lay still and drink sips of water, okay?" "Thank you," Tenna whispered. "You're so nice, and your bed is fluffy like a cloud." "What should I do?" Trig asked. He was suddenly eager to help. Now that Tenna was lying on the bed in a well-lit room, he was starting to notice just how pretty she was. Just being around her made him feel lightheaded. "There's nothing you can do," Pentua told him. "She needs water and rest. You go to school. Don't get distracted, and let me take care of your friend here. I'll see you back here this afternoon." Groaning in frustration, Trig went to retrieve his school bag from his bedroom. He paused in front of the small shrine in his closet, where a tiny statue of the goddess Ray could be found. "Did you send her?" Trig whispered to the statue. "If you did, wow! Thanks!" Trig reluctantly left the house and walked to school. Pentua told him not to be distracted, but that was a losing battle. No matter how hard Trig tried, he could not stop himself from thinking about something else. Eddleton Secondary School did nothing to help Trig stay focused on his classwork. As usual, Valdemar students were given preferential treatment. They were allowed to sit at the front of the classrooms and given the newest textbooks. All other children occupied the rear of the class, working with outdated materials and frequently neglected by the teachers. Unable to focus, Trig was in for a long day. First period was astrogeography. Mr. Nilo gave the class a simple task. "There are only 7 worlds inhabited by our people. Please list all of the planets in the galaxy where Sutherians reside." None of the students moved. Trig missed the question entirely. He was daydreaming about 2 of the girls on the other side of the classroom. Mr. Nilo smiled. "So, you all saw my trick question coming, eh?" the teacher said. "Very good, class. There are no Sutherians living on planets anywhere in the galaxy. Now then." Mr. Nilo wrote the names of 7 worlds on the marker board. Sutheria, Newis, Lightwater, Tyron, Dagorka, Eddleton, Naurier. "Can anyone tell me which of these moons is not located in the Sutharian Empire?" Mr. Nilo said. No one answered. After a moment, the teacher spotted Trig staring off into space. "Mr. Shepminter," Mr. Nilo growled. A Birkin girl in the desk next to Trig jabbed him with her pen. "Trig!" Liz Vane hissed. "Trig!" Trig woke up and looked around to see the rest of the class staring at him. Mr. Nilo glared. "Mr. Shepminter, you clearly need help staying awake during the daytime, so I'll give you something to do. I expect a 10-page essay about the history of Lightwater. the only Sutherian world outside of our empire. I want it by the end of the week. Don't let your classmates down. Somehow, Trig survived most of mathematics class, but just when he thought he was in the clear, Trig messed up Abinda's theorem. He was thinking about Tenna again, and the teacher caught him failing to pay attention. A squared plus b squared is c squared, Mrs. Thoso shouted in his face. Everything we're covering today is an expansion of this. Of course a Birkin like you would forget something so basic. A Valdemar boy named Kasha latched onto this, almost gleeful to find something to tease Trig about. Do you remember? Kasha asked in a sing-song voice when he saw Trig in the hallway. It's so basic, Trig. Can't you get anything through that thick, Berkey skull of yours? Can any of your people do that? Trig suffered in history class. It was boring and tedious, trying to learn about people and events from another world. 90% of all Sutherians lived on the home world. Therefore, 90% of all history happened there. Why bother? Trig had never set foot on the homeworld and likely never would. As far as Trig was concerned, there was no point in learning about this subject. Normally, Trig would entertain himself by looking at Landa, a Valdemar girl who sat near the front of the classroom. She was extremely pretty and always captivated Trig. Sometimes he would silently ask the goddess Ray to cause Landa to fall for him. Today was different. Not even Landa's immaculate form could keep his thoughts away from the mysterious girl from the overlooked temple. After just a few minutes, Trig was staring off into space, wondering just how Tenna managed to trap herself in the temple basement. Mr. Hanslet did not appreciate this. He slammed his palm onto Trig's desk, waking him from his trance. You have got to be kidding me, Shepminter, Mr. Hanslet barked. We're talking about recent events, things that happened when you were a kid. Surely you remember something. Now tell me, who ordered the expulsion? Trig shrugged his left shoulder. Landa raised her hand. Ignoring her, Mr. Hanslet focused on Trig. How did our current ruler come to power? No answer. What is the new official language of the Sutherian Empire? Come on, Berkey. It was just changed last year. We're all speaking it right now. Landa could not resist the temptation anymore. She spoke up. Sir, our new emperor, Kanto I, ordered the expulsion of the telepaths 15 years ago. Back then, he was just president for life. He got the job when he overthrew his older brother, and then he crowned himself emperor last year. That was when the government's official language was switched back to Oldenbar. Mr. Hanslet glared at Landa, his expression softening. Well done, Miss Thoso, he said. Though I'll remind you that out there in the real world, no one is going to reward you for helping a Berkey. Landa looked at Trig, then back at her books. She did not acknowledge him for the rest of class. In the second to last class of the day, Trig could barely pay attention. The language teacher was focusing on Oldenbar today, and Trig allowed his mind to wander. He spoke Birkin as his first language, Valdem as his second, and he knew enough Oldenbar to have short conversations. Like many kids his age, Trig seemed to think that he knew enough. Instead of following along with the class, Trig found himself staring at a mental image of Tenna, and he tried to guess just how she ended up in the Overlook Temple.